I can beat you 'cause you're just a girl, Darnell taunted. As the new class president, I fought bullying while orchestrating a fake wedding to bring joy to my friends, even as drama unraveled. Turns out some bonds are just too toxic to last. What happened next shocked us all. Hi Reddit, I'm Weirdo, obviously not my real name. I'm going into grade 9 this year, which is the third year in our junior high school system here in the Philippines. I have always been an introvert ever since I was a child. However, that has never hindered my success as an academic achiever. Honestly, I care more about my grades than about love or relationships. Teenagers should focus on that anyway, right? My life changed when I switched schools after graduating from elementary school. We do grades 1-6 for elementary school and 7-10 for junior high school here. My family wanted me to become more social. Like, what is so wrong with being an introvert? But yes, I was still young and simply went along with their wishes. At my new school, I made a best friend and for a while everything felt great. I even ended up as vice president of my class that first year and was then promoted to class president, we call it mayor, in grade 8. So yes, I did socialize and take on responsibilities. But not everything was perfect. You know how every class has those kids who get picked on just for being different, like the ones who randomly ask, "Do you have games on your phone?" Yes, in my school, which is a Catholic institution, those kids get bullied. Verbally. It is either body shaming or teaching a child with autism inappropriate material. It is disgusting. As class mayor, I felt compelled to take action. Who teaches a child with autism inappropriate jokes and encourages him to act annoying on purpose? It is cruel. Then there is this guy, let's call him Darnell, who was being body shamed. He wasn't even that big. One day during our sports club session, he said he wanted to try out for the swimming team. And this group of boys in our class, led by their so-called leader, laughed and said, "You will just float on the water." Seriously, what kind of absurd comment is that? It was humiliating and nobody intervened. That was when I brought the issue up with our advisor, particularly about the body shaming. I could not just ignore it. Anyway, that is just part of what I have experienced as a student leader and as someone who still believes in doing what is right, even when others choose to remain silent. Thank you for reading. I truly needed to express this. After I reported everything to my advisor, she addressed the entire class about the issue. But let's be realistic, justice does not always prevail. I was trying to stand up for the kids being bullied, but the culture does not change overnight. One day, my friends and we had just become close that year, saw Darnell crying. I asked him what was wrong and attempted to say something comforting or motivational. Honestly, I do not even remember what I said, but I just wanted him to feel supported. That moment inspired me to suggest something small yet meaningful. I said, "Hey, how about we create a group chat for our friend group?" And everyone was on board with it. And yes, it was my idea. At first, we did not know what to name the group chat, but when I got home and created it, I chose something random that held significant meaning to me from my childhood: Handsome Squidward. Yes, I was a SpongeBob fan. Everyone accepted it. That group chat became our little space to have fun, laugh, and support one another. 4 of us were even the academically gifted students, you know, high honors and everything. We were more than just a group, we were a team. Most of the kids in our group chat were not really academic achievers, so we honor students had to remind them about homework, as if we were their second brain or something. But we did not mind, we shared that kind of bond. To make things more enjoyable, we gave ourselves SpongeBob-themed nicknames in the group chat. Mine, I was Mermaid Man, obviously, it suited me perfectly. Then came a joke that spiraled into complete chaos in the best way. We began pretending that Darnell was marrying his best friend Samuel, not his real name, but he once told us he was almost named that, so we ran with it. In our SpongeBob alternate universe, Darnell was Mr. Krabs and Samuel was Mrs. Puff. Do not ask how it began, but we were deeply invested in the lore. It was simply our way of escaping the nonsense happening at school. We created this silly little world where we had each other's backs. It all began at church Catholic school traditions. We have First Friday Mass every month. My best friend and I were sitting there just talking when she mentioned the most random dream ever. I had to finish a mission, but the mission was to ruin a wedding. We were laughing hysterically, like, girl, what? But then that dream actually inspired us. We thought, wait, what if we organized a fake wedding just for fun? That is when we decided to plan one for our group chat. We chose Darnell and Samuel fake names, obviously, as the bride and groom. And just so you all know, both Samuel and I are gay, and this whole fake wedding turned into the queerest, funniest, most chaotic thing ever. I was the best woman, the host, and the planner. I was booked and busy, my friend. I ensured everything was perfect, like a true girl boss gay aunt. After all that chaos, which was pure fun, we had everything ready. The fake wedding was planned to perfection. We had the guests, the roles, the graphics, and even the save-the-date announcements. It was going to be legendary. But then, Darnell started sending messages in the group chat expressing that he felt like Samuel was drifting away from him. To clarify, nothing like that had happened yet. Samuel was not ignoring him or anything. But Darnell was spiraling seriously. He kept saying things like, "I do not think he likes me as much anymore," and we were like. So we did what good friends do. We tried to comfort him, telling him, no, that is not true, and that Samuel still cared about him just the same. We were not trying to ruin anything. It was a joke wedding between two best friends, not the end of a friendship. So the wedding plans kept moving forward. We never actually paused them. We were just having fun, creating silly things on Canva, planning roles, sending invitations, and all that. There was even one hilarious moment when Darnell literally ran away from us at school because he was nervous about the wedding. We had to chase him across the campus, yelling things like, "Come back, you are the groom," while other students just stood there, confused about what was happening. Complete chaos. Honestly, one of those memories that will always be funny. But then things started to change. Darnell began to act strangely in the group chat, making comments like, "I feel like Samuel does not like me anymore, and you all are replacing me." Initially, we comforted him. We reassured him that he was part of the group and that no one was being replaced. But it continued to happen. Every single time we were having fun, he would bring it up again. It would pop up at random times. Then he started targeting weirdo number 2, my best friend. She had not even done anything. She was merely enjoying the moment with the rest of us. But suddenly, Darnell was making her feel like she was the villain. It was as if she was somehow stealing Samuel from him. Like, what on earth? It was subtle at first, but it became manipulative. He wanted to control how things unfolded and could not tolerate anyone else being close to Samuel or even being too happy without his approval. That is when we all began to realize this was not just about insecurity, it was toxic. Then came the jokes. Darnell started making comments in the group chat like pairing weirdo number 2 and Samuel together. I mean, weirdo number 2 identifies as aromantic asexual and Samuel is openly gay. So these jokes were not only misguided, they were also disrespectful. It felt like he was trying to stir up drama that did not exist just to make things uncomfortable and ruin everyone's mood. So after the wedding chaos, Darnell did not stop. He continued to act as if Samuel was slipping away from him, claiming he did not even know him anymore. But the reality is Samuel thinks Darnell is just overreacting. He has been acting far too dramatically, and honestly it seems like he cannot face the fact that Samuel has not changed. He is still the same person. Darnell persisted in being manipulative and toxic, trying to make everything revolve around him, even when it had nothing to do with him. He would vent to his other friend, Michael, about everything occurring at school, making it seem like everyone was against him when, in reality, he was merely overthinking things and distorting them to fit his narrative. It reached a point where it was obvious Darnell was venting to Michael to seek sympathy, and Michael, who did not know the complete story, just fed into it. Darnell was attempting to manipulate the entire situation, and Michael did not even realize he was being drawn into the drama. But Samuel just could not grasp it. He kept telling Darnell that he was overreacting and that nothing was changing, but Darnell did not want to listen. He kept pushing, seeking attention, and trying to elicit sympathy from others. The entire situation felt exhausting and toxic, and eventually everyone began distancing themselves from him because of how much he continued to prolong it all. So after everything that happened, we all agreed that Darnell and Samuel should have a divorce or annulment. I'm not exactly sure how it works in real life, but based on what I understand, if you're married for like 4 days or something, there is a chance for an annulment, right? So in our little wedding scenario, we made it happen. They got divorced. But it did not go as smoothly as we had anticipated. The problem began when I became Samuel's lawyer in the divorce, and Darnell was being overly dramatic about it. Here is where things get messier. Michael, the guy Darnell had been venting to, decided he would be Darnell's lawyer. The issue was Michael was all about sympathy. He was only supporting Darnell because he did not want to see him hurt or upset, but he did not know the full story. I had to keep my cool, acting as Samuel's lawyer, while Michael was busy seeking sympathy from Darnell, and I was over here trying to maintain order. So while Michael was acting like he was the supportive lawyer, I had to work diligently on Samuel's side of things. It felt as if Darnell and Michael were just escalating the drama, making it harder for us to focus on actually resolving anything. The entire situation felt more like a joke, but in some way, it also served as the final straw that made us all realize just how toxic everything had become. Story 2. My 64-year-old mother is drowning in debt, funding her family in Liberia while neglecting my needs. "I'm not your ATM," I begged as she prioritized Tommy over me. Now, with her health in decline, I face the painful reality. I must choose myself for once. Apologies for any typographical errors and mistakes. I am typing this while I am very upset. My mother, who is 64 years old and from Liberia, a country in West Africa, left during the Second Civil War. She was brought to the United States by her then-boyfriend and settled down in New Jersey. As anyone who is the child of immigrants or an immigrant themselves understands, sending money and items back home is a regular occurrence. The United States is a global superpower and is regarded in other countries as incredibly wealthy. It is believed that anyone in the United States is rich. Regardless of how much you try to explain that this is not the reality, people continue to perceive you as wealthy if you are in the United States. I have cerebral palsy, which I was born with. My mother has never been the type to advocate for me. She never sued the hospital where I was born, never made any effort to seek services to assist me, never explored what I could do outside the home, and never even initiated a lawsuit when I was injured at school due to an incident that was clearly a lawsuit-worthy offense. My childhood was limited to staying indoors, attending school, returning home, and being prayed over by church members. My mother never took the time to learn how to work with my disability. Her main goal was to fix me because she believed I was broken. Why install a ramp when God will heal me and I will soon be able to walk? Why look into after-school programs when God will cure my brokenness and I will not need them? Why attempt to let me have fun and engage in activities when I can do that once I am healed? I had to adjust to her way of thinking and the world around me. The one constant in my life has been Liberia. Family in Liberia needed money. Family in Liberia required school fees. Someone in Liberia had a child and named them after my mother, so she felt obligated to buy them gifts. All the money in our household was directed to Liberia, regardless of the circumstances. My father, who lived in Texas, would send money for me. Occasionally, my mother would use that money for me, but other times it would be sent to Liberia. Eventually, my father moved back to Liberia. My mother would utilize my presence to request money from him for her use. Liberia always took precedence over me. When I turned 18, I applied for Social Security and Medicaid independently. I had to become my own advocate because my mother did not understand how to do so and never bothered to learn. I also ceased attending church. It felt predatory, and I blamed the church people for my mother's inaction. They also received what little money she had. I began to build my credit as I studied at an online university. We had stairs, which made going out difficult. I focused on managing credit cards, tracking my credit score, and being cautious with how I used my sole source of income. Before I turned 18, my mother married and brought her new husband to the United States. As soon as he arrived, he transformed into a different man. He was verbally and emotionally abusive, often very harsh. They would wake me up with their shouting and fighting, which led to me developing anxiety and experiencing panic attacks. I wanted to leave. I felt compelled to leave, but my mother would not allow me to do so. She relied on me. She never learned how to take care of herself. I handled her bills online, made her appointments, and assisted her with online shopping. I even paid the down payment on her car after her husband stole her previous vehicle. Throughout this, I became less significant to her. Her priorities shifted to Liberia, her husband, the church, and then me. She would leave me hungry because she was preparing meals for her husband, then feed him first before attending to me. She would wake me up because her husband required assistance with various tasks. She told me I could not call her at a certain time at night if I needed to use the bathroom because it might wake her husband. To be clear, I understand that I am a burden. I realize that my disability makes me challenging to deal with and that my mother has faced considerable difficulties because of me. I acknowledge that my very existence complicates her life and makes her miserable. I am aware of this, even though she has never expressed it. However, I never asked to be here. I never requested to have cerebral palsy. I never asked to be her daughter. Now, returning to the main point of this post, I believe that her unhappy and abusive marriage made her focus more on Liberia. Around 2017, someone new entered the picture. I will refer to him as Tommy. To provide some context, it became common for someone in Liberia to call and put their child on the phone to ask my mother for money. This typically worked. Tommy is my mother's great-nephew, but she referred to him as her grandson. Tommy and his mother would call incessantly, and it was always for financial assistance. What started out innocently would eventually turn into requests for money. In 2021, Tommy's mother passed away and my mother effectively became Tommy's mother. She also provided Tommy with my phone number, so he began calling me regularly. At this time, Tommy was desperate to advance his education and wanted to attend university. He was offered a scholarship to a school in Germany. He requested money from my mother, my older brother, and me. Yes, me who is disabled. I sent 100, my brother sent 900, and my mother sent 500. Reddit, Tommy deceived us. He did not go to Germany, he went to Singapore. How this happened remains a mystery to us, but this was the final straw for my brother and me. We decided we were done with Tommy and his lies. He also tried to involve me in a money laundering scheme, which I quickly put an end to by confronting him, upsetting my mother in the process. However, my mother remained committed. Tommy was stuck in Singapore and she was financially supporting his life there. She covered his rent, paid his fees, and financed multiple tickets for him to return to Liberia. She even purchased items for his reselling business. He also promised her many things: new clothes, jewelry, and an iPhone because he said her Samsung was awful. None of this ever materialized. Eventually, Tommy returned to Liberia, where he met someone whom I will refer to as Sarah. Overnight, Sarah became my mother's best friend. They would talk for hours on end. I would wake up to hear my mother on the phone with Sarah and go to bed hearing her as well. My mother basically became addicted to speaking with Sarah. She virtually stopped communicating with me entirely, only focusing on Sarah. Sarah had her own set of issues and aspirations. My mother was expected to cover the costs associated with those. If Sarah wanted to start a business, my mother had to pay for the items she intended to sell. If Sarah offered to care for one of my mother's grandnieces or grandnephews, my mother would provide for any food they consumed. If Sarah experienced 5 consecutive miscarriages, my mother would cover all the medications and hospital visits. My mother also paid for their wedding, as you might guess. My mother's health is deteriorating. She became disabled in 2014 after a car accident and has been on Social Security ever since. She receives 3 times the amount I do. Despite this, she struggles to pay her bills and obtain her medications. She resorts to using credit cards to cover her medications without paying the credit card bills. She accumulates significant debts at doctors' offices, and they are now unwilling to see her until she settles these obligations. She is at risk of going blind unless she receives an injection she cannot obtain because she owes the doctor's office $589. She shared this with Sarah. Her response: "Oh wow, but you know Lily's Sarah's daughter birthday is April 30th, right?" This is after Tommy berated my mother for not paying their rent on schedule. Sarah and Tommy are 22 and 25 years old, yet rely entirely on my mother. I have implored my mother to stop countless times. I have pleaded with her to cease. I have even asked others to intervene and talk to her in order to make her stop. She does not listen. She has entirely dedicated herself to supporting Tommy and Sarah. They are her sole focus. Once, I calculated the amount of money she sent in a single month. She sent $2,769. Yet her bank account is perpetually in the negatives due to credit card bills on auto-pay, payment plans with debt collectors, and other expenses. I cover her phone bill, but she does not provide me with the money to pay her share of it. The electricity bill remains unpaid this month because her husband insists they equally share all expenses, and she has not contributed her portion. I had to persuade her not to spend her last 20 on something to send to Liberia when she needed it for gas. It is exhausting. I have given up. I watch her slowly trap herself in an inescapable situation, and as her health declines, there is nothing I can do. She does not care what I have to say. She does not care that I have cried while begging her to stop. She does not care that Sarah and Tommy treat her poorly and see her merely as a source of money. She is trapped and there is nothing I can do. Edit, thank you for all the advice and kind words. I truly appreciate it and intend to heed the advice. I just needed to vent because I felt myself nearing another emotional breakdown after my mother had me spend an hour saving photos of Sarah's baby to send to her, all because Sarah requested it. I carry a lot of guilt. I feel guilty because the house we currently live in was purchased with my mother's lawsuit settlement from her accident, as I wanted to move out of our previous home, which she and her husband's actions caused to induce my anxiety. I also feel guilty because she has gone into further debt to buy things for me. However, this is not my fault. I have repeatedly insisted that she does not need to buy me anything, especially if it puts her deeper into debt, but she continues to do so. We ultimately had to leave that house anyway as it was falling apart. Most importantly, I did not ask to be born or to be disabled. I contribute more to her than my brother does. I may have burdened her with my existence, but I have more than compensated for that. I have done everything I can for her, and yet, when I was sobbing and pleading with her to stop sending money to Sarah and Tommy, she returned the next day to send more. You are correct, she chose them. She has prioritized everything over me since I was a child. Now it is my turn to be selfish and to choose myself over her and her needs. Thank you all once again. I will be deleting this account, but please know that I am doing my best to escape this situation. Please send good vibes to me and negative vibes to Tommy and Sarah. Story 3. I spent years feeling disconnected from my body, thinking muscle would fill the void. I was wired for survival, not feeling. After a hormonal crash and exhausting search for desire, I discovered the key: healing my nervous system from prenatal trauma. Can I finally reclaim my true self? For most of my life, I could not explain why I felt disconnected from my body. On the outside, I appeared functional. I worked out, built muscle, and stayed active. However, inside, I felt emotionally flat, sexually shut down, and hollow in ways I could not articulate. It was not until I looked beneath the surface beyond just hormones and muscles that I began to comprehend what was truly happening. Prenatal psychology, the study of how our earliest environment in the womb shapes our nervous system and lifelong patterns, provided me with the missing piece. My healing journey began before I was even born. Wired for survival before birth. I was born from a high-risk pregnancy. My mother had an infantile uterus, which meant she could not carry a pregnancy safely without complete bed rest. She spent the entire 9 months immobilized, under constant medical supervision, doing everything she could to keep me alive. Prenatal psychology teaches that a baby absorbs not only nutrients but also the emotional and physical state of the mother. When the mother is under chronic stress, the baby's nervous system adapts. In my situation, my body learned that movement could be dangerous and that stillness meant survival. My nervous system was wired early on to suppress emotion, reduce activity, and remain quiet just to get through. Then at 41 weeks, I was delivered via cesarean section. While this may seem like just a medical detail, it is significant. The natural birth process provides a crucial surge of hormones, particularly stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, that awaken the baby's brain and nervous system, preparing the body for life outside the womb. Cesarean sections bypass this activation, leaving some systems dormant and never fully engaged. This prenatal environment shaped my body to survive, but not to feel completely alive. My sexual energy, emotional responsiveness, and spontaneity were muted from the very beginning. Early life moving without feelings. Despite these early imprints, I seemed physically advanced as a child. I crawled before 6 months. I walked by 10 months. I spoke before my first birthday. However, emotionally, there was a gap. I was perceived as mature and logical, but I did not feel connected to my emotions or surroundings. There was no spark, no real presence, just functioning. I also exhibited signs of physical imbalance. I struggled with childhood obesity. I wore orthopedic boots. I underwent adenoid treatments. These were not just isolated health issues. They were manifestations of a nervous system out of sync, compensating for the emotional disconnection rooted in my prenatal experience. Prenatal psychology explains that children who are wired for survival may excel physically but struggle emotionally, often carrying somatic symptoms as signals of deeper imbalance. By age 15, I was already pushing my body through intense workouts, hoping that physical strength would unlock the emotional aliveness I could not feel. However, building muscle did not fill the void inside. It merely provided armor around the emptiness. Adolescence, sexual confusion rooted in overflow. When puberty began, I struggled to understand my sexuality. The questions were not solely about whether I liked men or women. They were also about why I felt so disconnected from sexual desire altogether. I remembers watching pornography and questioning whether I was focusing on the woman's body or the man's presence. Wondering if I was gay, straight, or something else entirely, but never feeling fully aroused either way. In retrospect, I now understand that this confusion was not about sexual orientation. It was about nervous system overflow, the internal circuitry overwhelmed by sensation, unable to process sexual energy safely. Prenatal psychology teaches that when early survival wiring dominates, arousal can feel threatening, leading to either shutdown or overflow. At 15, my parents, not grasping my struggles, arranged for me to be with a woman. I went along with it, hoping to feel normal. However, the experience was mechanical. I could become aroused, but maintaining it was difficult. I often ejaculated prematurely, frequently before I felt anything genuine. The entire act felt like I was merely going through the motions, without any emotional or sexual connection. This was not about whom I was attracted to. It was about a nervous system in survival mode, unable to relax enough to permit true desire and emotional connection. Chasing hormones, missing the point, 2018-2024. By 2018, I decided to pursue a physical path more seriously. I began working with my trainer Carlos and pushed myself to run steroid cycles, believing that an increase in testosterone would resolve the emptiness. I thought if I built more muscle, I would finally feel whole. Yet I never addressed the underlying nervous system imbalance. I cycled steroids, chasing larger muscles, but felt the same inside. By 2022, I was casually using testosterone with my ex-boyfriend. In 2023, I officially began testosterone replacement therapy with human chorionic gonadotropin, thinking a structured protocol would stabilize me. Instead, I crashed my estrogen to zero by overusing anastrozole. The result: the total hormonal shutdown. My libido vanished. My emotions dulled even further. I felt lost within my own body. I was pursuing hormones without healing the underlying nervous system trauma rooted in my prenatal imprint. Sexual disconnection in relationships. Even while on testosterone, the divide between mind and body was apparent. I needed Viagra for every sexual encounter. During threesomes with my ex, I would make animalistic sounds as if I was turned on, but my body would not respond without the drug. My mind reacted, but my body remained numb. The survival wiring kept the circuits disconnected. In addition, I struggled with intrusive thoughts convinced my ex cheated with my best friend. Whether it was real or imagined did not matter. My nervous system could not let go. Even after breaking up with him, I cried because I loved him, yet I was disconnected from my own desire. When I met my current boyfriend, I felt glimpses of genuine sexual energy. Watching him dance, I experienced a spark of arousal. However, I still relied on Viagra, unable to sustain arousal naturally. When he mentioned that I was too young for testosterone replacement therapy, I took a break. Without testosterone, my body felt lifeless, like I aged overnight. Flat, asexual, exhausted. The true restart, healing from the nervous system up October 7, 2024. In October 2024, I realized this situation was not solely about hormones. It was about healing my nervous system by returning to those early imprints from the womb. I restarted testosterone replacement therapy, but with a holistic approach. Testosterone cypionate and propionate for hormonal balance. Human growth hormone for cellular repair and regeneration. Intravenous therapy, vitamin C, glutathione, Sindela for systemic healing. Tribdose B complex for nerve health. Infrared light therapy to reduce inflammation. DSIP peptide to regulate nervous system overflow. However, this time the focus was on containment, building the capacity to hold emotions, sexual energy, and arousal safely without overwhelming my system. Prenatal psychology teaches that healing early imprints necessitates repatterning the nervous system, not just adjusting hormones. That is what I have accomplished. Rediscovering sexual identity, containment unlocks true desire. What I thought was sexual confusion was, in reality, overflow masking my true self. For years, my nervous system could not process sexual desire. It was too overwhelmed, too wired for survival. But now, with containment, I can. Experience arousal without Viagra. Wake up with natural morning erections. Witness visual libido sparking in everyday life. My sexual identity is no longer about labels. It is about feeling connected to my body and being able to enjoy pleasure without forced efforts. Where I am heading, full integration, week 41. I am currently at week 28, feeling my sexual energy, emotions, and physical strength aligning. I still use trimix, but I manage ejaculation better and my body feels alive. By week 41, July 28, August 3, I expect to achieve full integration, the fusion of sexual energy, emotions, and physical strength. The person I was meant to be from the start, before survival instincts rewired me. Prenatal psychology provided me with the map, healing paved the road, now I am walking it. Story 4. Caught in a rainstorm walking to a strip club I never wanted to visit, my friend's words echoed, "I want you to have the full experience." After a forced dance, I felt paralyzed and violated. Now I'm left questioning everything. Was my consent even real? My friend, 22 years old male, and I, 20 years old female, non-binary, but I feel that mentioning I am assigned female at birth is somewhat relevant here. Went out last night. It was just the two of us because all of our other university friends have gone home for the holidays. It was an unexpected outing that began with him cooking at my house while we drank a few beers and ciders. After that, we went to a pub, had a few more drinks, and then decided to check out a club. After we left that club, my friend expressed a desire to go to a casino. I do not gamble, but since I was intoxicated and did not want to go home, I agreed to go just to watch and make sure he did not exceed his limit. It was my first experience in a casino. My friend entered casino into Google Maps, and the closest one was 30 minutes away, so we started walking. This walk took us through an area of the city we had never visited before, and I had no idea where we were. It was also a rather roundabout route, filled with obstacles, dodging construction sites, and taking small back roads to navigate. After we left the casino, my friend mentioned during our walk that we would take an Uber back and split the cost, so I assumed that is what we would do. He joked about his nights out with his old friends during his apprenticeship in another city, noting that they usually ended with a trip to the casino followed by a visit to the strip club next door. I made a joke saying something like, "Oh no, no strip club next door, whatever will we do?" I have never had an interest in strip clubs, and they have never appealed to me conceptually, even though I do like women. I do not view the concept as anything that would be fulfilling for me. I do not typically feel attracted to people in a sexual way unless I am already quite close to them. Therefore, I genuinely doubted I would get anything out of a visit to such a venue. Regardless of what others may think, for me personally, strip clubs conflict with all my morals, as I consider myself quite feminist and find them to be really objectifying and disturbing. I do not wish to debate this in the comments. It is my perspective and how I feel about the situation, and I am simply adding it to clarify that I would never want to go to a strip club. However, my friend then searched for nearby strip clubs on Google Maps. The nearest one was again 30 minutes away, taking us back into the city center. I started discussing how it was pouring rain, that it was a 30-minute walk, how I could not afford the entry fee, that I would sober up during the walk, and that I would not want to be in that kind of place while sober. I mentioned that I had work on Saturday and needed to get adequate rest in order to be ready for it. He insisted that he would cover my entry fee and buy my drinks. I was unsure what to do. I was extremely intoxicated in a remote area, and I agreed to at least walk there so that I would be in the city center and not walking back alone at 2 in the morning from an unfamiliar part of the city, particularly as a person assigned female at birth. This situation would be unpleasant for anyone, but considering that I am assigned female at birth and that there have been multiple reports of women being assaulted or killed in my area while doing similar outings recently, it made the experience much more daunting. I could not afford to pay for an Uber on my own without him sharing the cost. During our walk, he described what the club would be like. He said something along the lines of, "Girls will come up to you and offer you dances, but no matter how attractive they are, you have to say no." I made a joke saying that I did not think that would be an issue for me, as I am not really attracted to the type of women who typically perform in strip clubs, meaning very feminine women, just not my usual type. I made it quite clear that I did not want to dance, even if we ended up going inside. When we reached the center, he immediately checked how much entry was, which was 5. He promptly announced that he would pay for both of us. I did not want it to seem as if I were solely blaming him for something I regretted doing. I should have just said no. If I had been sober, I would have been much more assertive and simply asked to walk him home, as his bag was at my place anyway. He ended up upstairs where he bought me another drink. A woman began to pole dance. I felt uncomfortable once again. I am not a prude, but being there contradicted everything I believe in. I felt like a creep, and witnessing the reactions of those around me intensified my discomfort. The most I garnered from the experience was, "She is really pretty. How can she perform in those heels?" Other than that, I was overcome with an uneasy feeling in my stomach and did not want to remain there. I thought I would just endure it until my friend decided to leave so he would not feel like he wasted his money, and then I would return home and feel regretful about it. After the dancer finished her performance, women approached us one by one, talking to both of us and then to just one of us, clearly offering private dances and so on. I declined every single offer. Eventually, the woman who had danced earlier approached us again, and at that moment my friend was not engaging with anyone. When she offered me a dance, he stated it was 40. I thought, oh, an easy way out, I do not have 40. I expressed that I did not have that amount to spend, that 40 was quite a lot of money, etc. But then my friend said he would cover my cost with the winnings he had collected from the casino earlier. He had left 20 ahead. Now there was this woman looking at me while my friend insisted he would pay for me. I told him that I could not accept 40 from him since he had already bought me so many drinks that night and had paid for my entry to the club. He insisted that if he was taking me to a strip club, he wanted me to have the complete experience. I know it may sound silly, but I was genuinely unsure what to do. I felt trapped. Ultimately, I relented. The dance was simply what it was. Again, I do not believe I received what most people would typically gain from it. The dance itself did not make me uncomfortable. It was not as if I had never seen a naked woman before, etc. But I felt incredibly strange and wrong. I felt completely immobilized. Once the dance concluded, I went to find my friend in the smoking area. He asked me how it was, and I made a joke saying something like, "Oh my God, breasts." He inquired whether I saw full nudity, and when I confirmed, he was surprised and remarked that 40 usually does not get that level of exposure. That comment particularly unsettled me. I do not know. I stood there vaping while feeling somewhat dazed and hollow, and all I wanted was to go home. Fortunately, we did leave shortly thereafter. We picked up a Taco Bell from the one across from the club and walked back to my place, which was a 15-minute stroll. He collected his bag and sat down for a bit before calling an Uber to go home, while I removed my soaked hoodie, pants, socks, and shoes after walking in the rain and then collapsed in my shirt. Today, I confided in 2 of our other friends about my experience, and both remarked that it all feels quite odd to them. My friend is nearing 23 years old. I just turned 20. However, he has already held full-time jobs, lived away from home for several years, visited strip clubs frequently, and recounted a story about how he used cocaine off a stripper's body. They claim he has much more life experience than I do and that he should not have pressured me into going. Our friends are saying he acted very wrongly in this situation, that he should have taken my excuses as a signal to go home, and that he should have interpreted my refusal to accept his financial help as a clear no, and this incident should have never occurred. One of them even suggested it was akin to assault, but I am uncertain if I agree with that characterization. I am feeling quite strange and uneasy. I have not been able to leave my bed. I have been crying and listening to The Cure on repeat. I have essays to write, laundry to do, I need to shower, I am thirsty, but I just cannot find the motivation to get up. I do not know if I have the right to feel violated by this experience, but I definitely do.